Hey everyone, I just wanted to post another video and talk a little bit about some of the things that we'll need to address for the second half of the course. So we're like about halfway through the course, and it seemed like a good time to check in with a little bit of more like verbal instruction for those of you who learn better by just listening to someone. Also, though, I really want to go over more information about quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing, and citing sources, primarily because these are the things that we all have to do the same. So I can just address all of you at once about these things. It seems from the grading that I've been doing that there's some things that aren't, still quite understood about even the purpose of the sources, so I want to go over some of that. First of all, let me just say there's two types of sources. There's primary sources and there's secondary sources. Primary sources are the sources that you're analyzing, that is the text you're analyzing. For example, in the last paper you analyzed poems. The poems were the primary sources. If you were analyzing a movie, the movie would be the primary source. If you were analyzing a play, the play would be the primary source. If you were analyzing, a photograph, the photograph would be the primary source. A painting, the painting would be the primary source. So that's how that works. For your next paper, paper 3, your primary source is going to be the play The Glass Menagerie, written by Tennessee Williams. So obviously your primary source is the play. You'll be analyzing the play. The primary source is the main place that you should be spending your time as you try to come up with an idea for each paper. Your paper should all come from your own ideas about the primary source. The primary source is where you start and is where you need to continually return as you're writing your paper. For paper 3, you're also going to be using excerpts from the journal articles that are in the casebook of the textbook. This is the assigned reading. So those articles are the secondary sources. For your researched essay, you'll use full journal articles, which you're going to be finding on your own. So basically, paper 3 is practice using research without you actually having to find the sources on your own. Secondary sources are the sources where you get information or read other people's ideas. So many of you in paper 2, for example, used encyclopedia type sources for information about the author. Those are secondary sources, just like the journal articles are secondary sources. However, an encyclopedia type source doesn't really need to be discussed in the paper. That is, you can just cite the source in parentheses after the information. The information itself is neutral, right? Either Emily Dickinson was married or she wasn't. There's like no opinion there. So the information is neutral, and that means the source doesn't really need a lot of attention in your text. It just needs a citation so that we know what the source was. But articles from journals or website articles that talk about something, that is, they do more than just give neutral information. They have like an opinion or an interpretation or any other kind of idea about the text or the author or anything else. These types of sources, these sources that have ideas in them, that have opinions in them, they do need some introduction in your text before you start using the ideas. So any article that you use in your paper must be read in full in order to use it in the paper. This is important because the point of using other people's ideas is to understand what they think and interact with what they think. So just like dropping a quote here and there in your paper is really not enough. You have to provide a brief summary of the author's main point at very least. And just like one sentence is enough. For example, it might sound like in John Johnson's article, he argues Dickinson's reclusiveness led to her unique style. You've stated what the article is about. Now you can freely sort of use snippets of whatever comments or observations he made in your paper because the reader has an understanding of the basic idea of his point of view already. Then we can sort of trust, that you are not taking something completely out of context and trying to make the guy sound like he is saying something that he's not. Okay, so I lost my spot here in my notes, so let me try to find my spot again. Okay, so in paper 3, you're only going to be using excerpts from these articles. So introduce them, but you could just have to introduce the gist of the excerpt. Obviously, you don't have access to the full article in the textbook, so you just need to use the excerpts. All right, so at this point, I just want to emphasize again that for all of your papers, the idea that controls the organization and the focus of the paper has to be your own idea. Okay? It's your idea. So that's why I'm saying start with the primary source. The primary source is the way to get the idea. You use the secondary sources as ways to help you think differently or stretch your thinking or think more about what you're observing, or you can use them to find answers to questions you've come up with. You know, for example, many of you after reading my Papa's Waltz were interested in finding something out about the author to see if maybe, you know, your readings, if it shaded your readings one way or another, right? Many of you were interested to find out if Hughes was writing about himself, for example, in Salvation. So in those situations, sure, you want to find out information to help you kind of understand the primary text, and that's a way to use a secondary source. But do not let the secondary source control your paper, right? So your paper should not be like one paragraph about what this source says, another paragraph about what this other source says, a third paragraph about what source C says. Like, you're not stacking summaries of other people's ideas. Your idea controls the organization of the paper. So the secondary sources are used to support your idea or to present a complication that you want to discuss. You know, for example, like if you said, so-and-so says that, you know, whatever. So-and-so says such and such, but I disagree. I think blah, 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 blah. So you're like using somebody else's idea as a springboard for, you know, actually, I think it's more complicated than that, or that's totally wrong. You know, you can do that too. So either you use them as support or you use them to sort of enrichen or engage ideas that you didn't yourself have. But the controlling idea of the paper is your own idea. Okay, so then I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the style of an academic paper, and I'm talking here more sort of tone. A lot of you are using a style that is very blatantly referring back to the assignment. For example, you might write something like, I chose to write about such and such a poem for this assignment. That kind of beginning is super great for getting started, getting a draft going. It gets you into the paper, and then you start to realize what your ideas are and things start to come into focus. You're not just staring at a blank piece of paper, you're staring at a piece of paper that says, I decided to write about such and such a poem for this assignment. Good start. Once you've got that paper going and you have some idea of what you're going to be doing in your paper, that is the time to go back and rewrite that beginning. An introduction should be something super, you know. An introduction really needs to get the reader interested. It also needs to give the reader some idea of the specific direction the paper is going to go in. For a longer paper, you might need like 2 or 3 paragraphs for an introduction. For paper 3, you won't need that. You'll just need one strong, really hooky introduction that gets me really wanting to read your paper. And by me, I mean any reader anywhere, right? Not me who wrote the assignment. So you don't have to address the assignment in your paper is what I'm trying to say. And I'll tell you, there is nothing that is going to help you more with your academic style than to read the sample student papers in the textbook and journal articles. Journal articles are the model for academic style. That's the kind of language that you're sort of aiming for. But the sample student papers are attainable, and you can certainly read those and try to get an idea of what I'm talking about there. Some of you don't do that, don't write like that, but try to think of the essay assignment language as a way for you to get started thinking about what to do. And then after that, own up your paper, own up your idea, jump right into the idea. We don't need to know that there was an assignment behind it. It's just another way of me expressing the same thing. Okay, so most of you are still struggling though in some, and some of you are struggling in many or even all of the areas of quoting and citing sources. Everything that you need to do it correctly is on the course website and in the textbook. If you are not proofreading and doing a final edit on your paper with these resources open, with the pages of the book open, with the various pages on the website open so that you can actually look at them and refer to them as you're writing. If you're not doing it that way, then you're not actually practicing what I'm asking you to practice. You cannot just guess. You cannot just be like, I don't know, maybe the period goes here, maybe it goes there. I mean, you're not going to get a good grade that way. And also, you're not practicing what I'm asking you to practice. There is, any career that you go into in government or in law or in medicine or in business and probably many others, they're going to require you to use predetermined formats in some way or another. All of these professions have style manual type things that you will need to use. So having practice at following a format with precision is going to help you in everything that you do that involves noticing details. And really, most of life is noticing details. So following the MLA documentation and standard punctuation rules, like I'm asking you to do, is not busy work. It's not me just being very uncreative in how to figure out how to grade your papers or something like that. It's total brain exercise for you and is really going to prepare you for these kinds of things that you're going to have to do in the future, most likely. So, but having said that, if you aren't doing a final proofread and final edit of your paper using these resources, then, it's your choice to do them or not do them. The grade is where that's reflected. If you are following these working with these sources open and really trying to use the information and really trying to get it right and you're still really struggling, then I really want to help you. So what you need to do, and if that is the case for you, like if you write paper 3 and you get done with paper 3, which you should do with like an hour to spare before the deadline, then open the punctuation page, open the MLA page, open the OWL site that has the kind of citations on it that you need. Open the pages that I've referred you to in past papers because that's where your problems have been, and go through your paper and make it as perfect as you can. If you hand that paper in and you still have significant problems and you really did do everything that way, like you went through everything and tried to get it exactly the way the examples show, then I really want to help you individually, and you can just send me an email. We can set up a time. I can talk to you on the phone. I can, meet you here. If you're in Fairbanks, I can meet you here. I want to help you if you want me to help you, But if you're just not doing it, well, then you're just not practicing a part of the class. That's what it is. So before I end, I just want to say, like, the ideas that you guys have, the discussions you're getting into on the board, the really creative stuff I've seen in some of your papers, as well as the really close attention to the texts and everything has been a joy, a great joy, and some of you are really talented writers. So that's all great, and I really look forward to your papers. Yeah, I look forward to the next one. I really love Tennessee Williams. It's not my absolute favorite play by him, but it's a good one and it's very cool. It's got a lot of layers, and so I'll enjoy going to your discussion board and reading that. And yeah, okay, thanks. Bye. Contact me whenever you want.